Welcome to the Sales Lab. Are there any financial benefits? I mean, are they saving money in some way by switching to your, and I ask, in a lot of the contexts that we deal with, folks are always trying to quantify the value of their solution. Okay, yeah, my widget has a higher price tag, but it comes with a guarantee and it comes with added service that ends up mitigating the cost downstream, right? I mean, are there any conversations along those lines that you get to have?
Yeah, always. There's definitely always multiple areas that you have to kind of approach sales with, and price is usually at the top of those conversations. So from a price perspective, a pulse field ablation catheter might be significantly more expensive than an RF catheter, probably 5 times the price. But what we have done to mitigate that is that we have allowed the singular catheter to do both demapping and the ablation part of the procedure. So this same catheter that can create the map can ablate. So instead of opening up a mapping catheter and an ablation catheter and being charged for both, you're now getting the job done for approximately the same price, but you get this added safety benefit and this added efficiency benefit. So if you're a hospital and your physician was able to do maybe 2 ablation procedures in a day, and now they're doing 5, that's a huge financial incentive for the hospital to take, because efficiency plays into that equation a lot as well.
For sure. And are those numbers, are those examples realistic? I mean, moving from 2 to 5, is that kind of what you see?
I think that's very common to what we have seen.
Wow. Yeah. That's significant.
It's very significant.
That's more than double. That's huge. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a win for the hospital because they're getting more patients through. The physician's benefiting because he's having lower complications and higher returns on patients, and just as successful. That's a big piece of it. Is it going to work as well? And if it is just as good, if not better, but that's yet to be proven. But it is easier to prove something to be at least as good. So it is at least as good as what we were doing before. And then the patient, is the biggest winner in all of this, where they have no risk of these thermal effects and other complications.
Yeah, great. And so you said something that I found kind of interesting, because I try to drive this home with the students in the sales engineering class, that when we're talking about sales, if we kind of move up a level of abstraction, we can say influence, persuasion, getting people to do something that they wouldn't have done if you hadn't been there to suggest it, right? Mm-hmm. And I try to, because many of them will become managers at some point in their career, hope maybe all of them. And, I try to get them to keep in mind that when we're talking about managing, we're also still talking about a persuasion process. In general, maybe I'm just contrarian or something, but I don't think that people do what they want them to do just because you said you want them to do it. I'm pretty sure you have to sell them a little bit. They have to have something at stake. And so I try to really drive the point home that what we're talking about applies to economic transactions, economic exchanges, but it also applies to any time where we are trying to get somebody to change their behavior. Right. So it applies to my kids. It applies to employees when you're in management. Right. And you're describing earlier, the way you were describing having the physician change something that they may have been doing for years and years and be very comfortable with. I'd imagine that that's as hard of a sell, if not a harder sell, than anything on the financial side, or even, hey, you could probably convince a physician that the patient outcomes could be better and that the cost makes sense and they could come out ahead, and still get resistance because behavior change is tough. It hurts, even if it's a positive change. It's just really hard. So, is that something that you run into, or how often do you run into that?
Man, you were spot on in a lot of what you said. I never even thought about going to medical sales or any kind of sales for that matter. It was so far away from my horizons. Like, I hate trying to sell anybody on anything and trying to convince anybody of anything. And so I've never done that. I've never done that in my life and my job, and I would be horrible if I tried. But what I can do is I can speak to the physician on their level and understand what their problems are and see if I have something that can either improve or make their lives easier. And if I do, then I'm going to kind of present what I have as an offering. I identify your problem, and this is how I think that we can make your life easier. And on the contrary to that is I can also be the person that says, I understand the problems that you have, and I understand why you're choosing this solution. I'm not going to try to push my solution on you if it doesn't make sense. So there has been instances where physicians come to me and like, oh, I want to try this Orion mapping catheter on this procedure. He's never touched it before in his life, and it might not have been the best patient for him to use it on, and I would be transparent about that. And then he would, it's very rare for a salesman to tell you not to use this product, right? So, but that'll take me longer in my relationship with him and him to trust my advice when I say this can bring you a benefit, because I didn't try to sell him on something that wasn't going to be the best case scenario for him. Relationships are huge, and we're not looking for the one-time sale. We're looking for partnerships. So what might cost you a sale for a week or 2 weeks, but when's the relationship battle? That's a huge factor in it. So every physician has different motivations, different reasoning for why they choose what they choose. The primary objective is to understand what is causing them to make that decision, right? What is their motivating factor? Do they care about patient outcomes more than anything, or do they care about cost, or do they care about clinical trials, or whatever it is? Kind of understand what their goal is as a physician and what their priority list is, and then you can begin to sell to them.